What can I say in short about the erotica of the two genders? Well, when I heard this question, it was like, bro, we're diving deep, I guess. Pun intended, maybe. But the point is, that would be a video way too long necessarily. But if I am to speak about it in short, well, how do I put it? See, both genders don't have that much of a difference when it comes to their inner desires, their innermost desires, typically those that they're not easily gonna speak about. Yes, those that usually take a long time before someone opens up. So when it comes to the male gender, typically as of what I've intuitively observed into the human system, the male part is usually represented by a will to reproduce, and they are the ones who are supposed to, aid the most in reproducing the species. When we think a bit about, they are also more prone to willing to do that. Within the innermost sanctums, I may say, there is always going to be a set of two women or kinds of women that they will usually seek. The one that they will live with, or the female of their choice, the woman that will become their spouse, the nurturing feminine one who can take care of the children and of mostly the household while they do the work and, well, provide the money and gladly become the provider. And at the same time, the second one is the more, I wouldn't go straight forward and say sexual one, but the unhindered woman, the one who's not afraid of speaking her things, of being herself, and even, being kinky and the such in bed without much of a repercussion or things like that. Because especially nowadays, every time you want to talk with a woman, most of them they're nothing else but a huge set of bitch shields. Because the way they function is they have to test their partners and they have to make sure that their partners are capable of breaching those defenses. Because the male energy is supposed to be that of the conqueror, while the feminine energy is supposed to be the one who receives. Yes? So the point is, when it comes to the feminine, somewhat it is easier to comprehend, but I'm not sure why people do not want to understand that. Technically, the feminine always seeks one single male. Yes, naturally, well, this will probably be countered by a lot of people who have met the slutty kind of women, but technically, a normal woman wants usually one, or maybe let's say at most two or three men to experience, romanticism with. Typically, they will want the cheesy romanticism. That's more like how they wish to experience it for the first time. Not necessarily going sexual, but more like, sexy talk, cuddles, and things like that. Because technically, women aren't necessarily interested in the physical act. They're interested more in the cuddles and the idea of being made to feel good in their own skin. I've been telling people all the time, if you want to have a good relation with a girl, just make her feel good in her own skin. And this doesn't necessarily mean in bed. Typically, you see, with women, you have to handle some other things. And if you handle those well, sex will be more or less a reward. Not 100% guaranteed, but they will simply open up. Yes. With males, it is easier to get down to it because they are supposed by nature, not that they are perverts or whatever woke agendas portray them as, but the masculine is always going to be set on the reproductive part. Yes, that is why even harems were something, because a man can easily allow other women to have children. Yes, because so many people say that maybe they kind of exaggerate a bit and they kind of portray women as the ones who give birth. Yes, obviously they are the ones who give birth, but that doesn't necessarily make them superior because in the end they still need a man for that, naturally speaking. We're not talking about genetic engineering and things like that. So when it comes to the the female erotica, well, the feminine functions by inviting you, including you into her own world. Yes, she will open up once she has enough, let's say, stability, and she feels cared enough. Now, typically, as a man, you'll always have the harder role in society no matter what, irrespective of how many women will piss their eyes off, and irrespective of whatever women will consider. You'll always have to be her guardian, you'll have to be her mental guardian, you'll have to be her psychological gatekeeper, and things like that. Because you have to understand one thing: when it comes to women, they can do kind of almost anything a man can do, especially, well, when I'm speaking about work. Yes. Now that many women are choosing to be lazy and unproductive, that is another point. I'm speaking about the core specifications. Yes. The woman is not in any way, shape, or form inferior to you. In many cases, they can be better at some things or worse. When you draw a line, both genders are equal in most of the things that they can do, work related, like office, corporate, and things like that. The problem that the woman has is that, she doesn't want to live in her mind much. Modern women end up too tied up in their own minds that they seek a man who can take decisions. This is something that a lot of people kind of fail at. Because you have to understand, being the nice guy is not something that a woman necessarily looks for. She does appreciate being asked what she would like to do, like whether you want to invite her in town or things like that. But you have to understand, when you're dealing with more like, let's say, the demi-corporate women, those who are still cerebral, still emotional, can still function normally and socially, but I'm not talking, I'm excluding the fanatical corporatist women, okay, and the woke ones. Yes, I'm speaking about the general sane women. Yes. When you deal with these women, typically their mind can end up trashy because the job requires things, schedules, time to do this, time to do that, and she ends up in a state where she's kind of mentally stimulated or overly stimulated. So she's gonna look into a man who's capable of taking decisions. She's, going to reach sooner or later levels in which she will feel brain dead. If she truly cares about you, she can even simulate that because, as I said, she doesn't mind posing as a damsel in distress because naturally she knows that you want to be needed. Yes, it's not that the woman is incapable of doing things on her own, but sometimes she might ask you, for example, to open a jar of pickles because she doesn't have the strength to do it. Or she's gonna ask for little requests just because she knows that you want to feel needed within the relationship. Yes, that's a sign that she likes you and that she welcomes you into her life. Can this be also used as manipulation tactic by some narcissists? Obviously, it's up to you to decide and figure out. But when it comes to the feminine, she will want you as a man to take decisions for her because she will reach a stage, like many of us do, when we get mentally fatigued. Typically, as of what I've seen, women tend to become fatigued a bit faster, but that is my personal experience. So, in such situations, she will want you to take almost any decision for her. She's not interested in you asking her whether you want to go out for dinner or whether you want her to cook. She wants you to tell her what to do because she's simply not interested in taking decisions anymore. Yes, some women actually function like that, and it's hard for many to understand. They are the corporate women who take decisions and do everything that is needed at work, but at home they need to be either the spoiled children or, like the functional robot, an archetype that I have observed in time, and people either miss or simply disregard more like fantasy. Because, see, they get used to the idea that they can be the rough bosses at work, they can take decisions or, be the strategists at work, but at home they are just like the robots. They want you to take the decisions, they want you to tell them to do the cleaning, they want you to tell them to I don't know, to cook or to take care of the children or to, I don't know, get freaky in the bed. That's how some women function. And in the corporate world, you have to understand time schedules and this and that and meetings, they can be very consuming. Yes, women are not necessarily made for the mental dimension. Yes, they are made to feel. Yes, they are made to feel intuitive. Yes, which intuition can bypass the mind at many times. That is why society, in its sickness, shuns away intuitive men and women because you can predict the patterns of the mind. Yes, but you cannot predict, at least easily, you cannot predict the patterns of intuition. Yes, because intuition is still a logic, just like the intellect, but it is a highly complex one, which does not follow the same steps that the intellect does. The intellect needs something which you have done and overdone, and you know it is correct, it is optimized, and maybe you get some optimization extra here and there. Yes, but that is what you do when you do patterns. You repeat something. Intuition doesn't necessarily repeat. You see someone doing something for the first time, even they are surprised and they get results. Yes, it's not that women are not capable of making use of their minds, but they are better when they feel in their emotions. Yes, and that is why many women, when they get home, they really wouldn't mind, some emotional appreciation. Not necessarily some kind words, those aren't necessarily gonna do the trick. Yes, they don't work the same for men. As a man, you definitely love it when the woman tells you that you're a good boy or, things like that. Even if this can be unfortunately fetishized, it is something regarding the feminine healing capability. Yes? The reason why they want both genders to be separated is because there is healing when you are together. Yes? Just sleeping close to a woman triggers a slightly hastened regeneration within both your bodies because you feel safe close one to the other. She doesn't want a harsh judge. She wants someone who can do all the computational things and end up with the best choices for both of them. Because a woman, especially if she's intuitive, she's gonna trust you that you're gonna take the better decisions. If you fail her several times, she's gonna feel that she's not needed. Because for her, it's gonna be perceived that she's kind of a hindrance. Because if you're not taking the right choices, she will still be close to you. But if she suffers also too much because of those, she might take the blame on her. Yes, this can go in and branch out in many directions. I'm trying to put things as simple as possible. Why I'm talking a lot more about the feminine side is because, for reasons beyond me, this is where society seems to crumble. It's like women are those black holes, those things that, the comprehension of most cannot simply go. And I'm pretty shocked to see women incapable of understanding themselves. And it's like, broski, you live in that body. Yes, I've met women who were surprised how easily I could read them and how much I knew about being feminine and how to, how the feminine works. Yes, not me being feminine necessarily, but the energy itself, what many people noticed about me is that usually my feminine and masculine energies are somewhat balanced, which provides me a certain calmness that either repulses people because they cannot comprehend life being anything outside of their noise that they are super used to, or it simply draws people in. There's literally no in between. Rarely do you see people, like just people on the street staring at me more or less, because they can feel the calmness from afar. It is something, unfortunately, a lot of people have as an alien aspect. Yes, it's something unmet or, almost a myth. And the simple existence of calm people tends to break that myth, but they're still not ready to embrace a reality without that noise that they are so used to. So when it comes to the feminine, she has some core aspects, okay, of the so-called erotica. In the darker erotica, technically, she wants rulership. Yes, she wants to be ruled in a way, but by you taking the decisions. You have to be her mental guardian. Yes, because many women, if they allow themselves to be outside of their survival, outside of their mind, they will tend to be emotional. And unfortunately, a lot of women are not ready to embrace their emotions back. Those women, unfortunately, you will have to either go through some of the most difficult battles, and unfortunately, in many cases, it's not going to be worth it. Or you might get a very, you might find a woman who's going to stay by you for the rest of her life. Because emotional struggles are very tough. Yes, they are battles, they are scars that belong even to ancestral origins. Many women suffer unfortunately from this, and it's very seeable nowadays. Even if women have access to all the education in the world, you will see them still acting in many cases like their ancestors did 400, 600, 1000 years ago. Yes, they will still not allow themselves to speak, not allow themselves to talk. Yes, a woman doesn't look for a judge. She looks for an arena, yes, where she can feel the most open and vulnerable possible. This is where almost every man fails in their life sooner or later because they cannot simply comprehend that. Yes. One big fantasy of women is meeting the man that can literally undress them by just looking at them. Yes, one man that can simply bypass all their shields or their bitch shields, all their self judgments, their all their things, and who can look at them for being just a woman. Yes, not someone who's doing immoral things or this and that. You know, she doesn't like being categorized in any way, shape, or form. In that little bubble that she craves, and she craves achieving through someone else, she wants to be everything of anyone's desire, both hers and yours. Yes, she doesn't mind being the dominant one, the bitch, the prostitute, the corporatist leader, anything that, you know, might cross her mind, or the necessities, because in the end, all those necessities are still somewhat of an ancestral design. Yes, they are accumulated throughout each frustration of each individual throughout our ancestors' lines. Yes, and it's gonna influence each of us. That's why some people have different fetishes. That's why some people have different cravings. That's why some people are obsessed with certain body parts. And also the reason why you will most likely never meet a girl that doesn't have any body related insecurity. Yes, they will either hate, for example, the penis. Yes, it's called penis envy. Even Freud speaks about that, especially if they have numerous younger brothers. Because in children, you have to understand there is a great competition for the love of their parents. And it is said that psychologically, women are not capable of handling that pressure when they see younger siblings being loved more by their parents. It is a great competition for their parents' attention. And parents will usually disregard their older children, yes? Not necessarily disregard, but they will give them less attention, less cuddles, and the such. And they will feel abandoned. Abandonment issues can hit really hard. And men might, well, boys might actually try to win it around through the psychological tactic of if you can't beat them, join them. Yes, so they will try to befriend their father and find out how they met their mother, how they made her love him, so that they gain the experience needed to do the same at their own time. Females, as psychology says, find it much harder. Not probably impossible, but they usually end up suffering from something called penis envy. They will end up envying the other gender. They probably will surround themselves in illusions that the other gender always has it much better. Yes, and men always have it much easier. You will see probably a lot of dum-dums claim such things, but it is more or less partly based on their own experiences. Typically, I do not recommend mingling with such individuals because these women usually might end up more spiteful than you may think, and they will probably only seek to make your life worse. Do not forget ever that the woman is nothing else but a amplifier. Yes, the feminine, which usually represents women more as an energy, is a representative of amplification. Yes, it amplifies whatever it knows. So if she knew abandonment and such issues, well, unfortunately, that is what she will bring to people around. Yes. So when it comes to more or less the sexualization part, yes, the woman doesn't mind being observed as an object. Yes, in the deepest cores of her um, erotica, she really wants to be observed as an object, not a woman, not a prostitute, not any kind of label. She just wants to be, let's say, devoured mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Yes, not physically, of course, but she wants to be seen as she is. Yes, someone who has emotional needs, someone who has psychological needs, and you might actually have to tinker with some of their fantasies. Yes, and you have to, become better at it. But the big problem is none of those will ever tell you what their fantasies necessarily are. Typically, in their erotica, they wish they have one big fantasy, which is the biggest, most hidden fantasy of all women, that of um, how to put it, that of taming the beast. Yes, all women fantasize of it. It doesn't matter where they come from, what background stories they have. Their own point is they wish to enter in the thick of any danger possible and simply tame the beast. Yes, that is why it is unfathomable to most people, but that is the reason why they will fantasize about the bad guy. They will always choose the bad guy because their deepest erotica is all about finding the bad guy and simply calming them down, soothing them down, taming the beast, and healing their wounds. Yes? Even if it's in many cases, due to their own needs, women might end up in horrible relationships as well. Yes? So, women will typically fantasize about the doctor as an archetype, yes, and they are the patient that, the doctor will be free to do whatever they want to them, or the dangerous beast called the billionaire, or, they will fantasize about the vampire, which will probably land them in the arms of narcissistic guys. They will probably tend towards an archetype that they call the werewolf. That is why many modern movies also portray these, more or less, because they are archetypes that, trigger some of these fantasies in a dark way. Hollywood always makes sure that it triggers things within you in the wrong way possible. Yes, they want you a slave of your own cravings instead of elevating you from them. And if you ruin women in a society, well, that's when you kind of ruin the entire society as well. Because the hand that rocks the cradle obviously decides the future of the country. Yes? So when it comes to life in general, well, women have to be taken care of. Yes? Now, what I mean by the werewolf archetype, that is literally the unhinged beast. Yes? Deep down in their erotica, the werewolf is the archetype of the unhinged beast, the man that really doesn't care about anything, the psychopath, whatever you want to call them. They simply go through any possible challenge and they don't give a damn fuck about anything. Others' emotions, irrelevant. They just have an objective and they finalize it. That's something that will really turn on some of the women. It's not because of confidence, it's because of that archetype. Yes, they don't care necessarily much about confidence in some situations. Some might actually want you to do your own things, but that I've seen branches in a different way, which I don't like, and I call it as a red flag. The women who will simply cheat or who will simply not be that interested in you, but they will spend time with you just so that they don't get judged by other people and pretend that they have a boyfriend or something. They will want people who are very focused on things so that they can handle their own things. Might be their own shady things or might not be shady things. Well, that's That's gonna be something. Yes. So that is one point. Yes. The archetype of the doctor in terms of erotica is an archetype, well, as of my own classifications. I've heard that these classifications also exist, but I've never found why, in any documentary that I've seen. I've only seen that they fantasize about these characters, but I've never seen anyone mention anything about why they fantasize specifically about that. Yes. So the archetype of the doctor is the archetype of the explorer, the one who will not find any problem in exploring anything about her. Massage, cuddles, maybe even rough sex, I don't know, depends on the woman, but these are technically things. The archetype of the doctor tends usually to be more like roughing up, maybe bondage stuff, and things about exploring the body. Yes, it's not just pretending that she is the patient and you're the doctor. Okay, it's an archetype that goes a bit deeper than just that. Okay, it goes into exploring every bit of her body physically and allowing her to feel the emotion behind that. Yes, it's all about the patience, not just massaging her body and things like that. And she definitely craves a mind that can actually think of all the possible details. Yes, like the body lotion that you're gonna use. Maybe use also some ice cubes for the extra eroticism. Maybe, blow some air on, the iced parts and things like that. Yes, and they love all so many of these details. The more you can actually tackle those, the better they will feel. Because as I said, the only way, the easiest way, and the only way actually to have a good relation with a woman, or at least solve most of the possible issues, is to make her feel good in her own skin. Yes, mentally, psychologically, emotionally as well. Yes, you will have to be the defender because, as I said, women can usually easily spiral out of control with their minds. Someone tells them something bad, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so horrible to simply pull out of that. She will tell you, probably, she will bombard you with all sorts of thoughts that piss her off. You just have to be the one to not judge, but to tell her and present her the reality as is. She's just reacting to something that doesn't necessarily hurt her, and she's causing her irrelevant pain. Yes? Because whatever someone says is just words, it's just stupid meaning. It doesn't matter much. Yes? But people might take that out of a concept. Yes, out of a context. And they might think that it's their own fault. Yes? When people self blame, they think it's always their fault for whatever there can be. So be attentive to such a pattern. Yes? Women at oftentimes end up in situations just like any other healer, yes, that you end up in a situation where you cannot comprehend anything about you. Yes, you are your biggest blind spot. It is the problem of a lot of people, of many empaths, especially people who just woke up to their empathic capabilities. Yes, they are their greatest blind spots. They are capable of observing things in others, but they are not capable of seeing issues within themselves. And some women can be very good at portraying issues or triggering issues within you. You have to understand the woman is not someone who wants to be fixed. She does not want to be fixed. She just wants to be aided because she feels good in her regeneration. She wants to feel each and every step. And especially if you also heal alongside her, well, that's going to be a relationship that most likely it will hold. Yes? A woman doesn't want you to control her necessarily. Maybe when she is in her bitchy, like more like sexual part, but in life she doesn't feel a necessity to be controlled. She may want you to take decisions, yes, she may want you to handle certain things, but that is not from the prism of control. Yes, she doesn't want to observe necessarily the idea of control. That is why when you see women who are controlling, that's usually a big flag for me, yes, and a red one as well. When I see women obsessed about control, I usually leave them. They're usually trash, and I'm not gonna bother about it. Yes? If you want yourself a good hint about a woman who might actually end up as a good pick for your life and someone who will stick with you, a woman who has very strong boundaries. Yes, because boundaries are not something you are born with. When a woman has strong boundaries, it shows that she is somewhat mature, at least on that dimension. Maybe she has mental boundaries, but emotionally she's still a child. That is usually something to cherish, keep her like that. The opposite is a bit more problematic. Maybe she is somewhat emotionally mature, but mentally she's still a child. She's still spoiled. She still fantasizes about all sorts of things that, she wants this, she wants that, she reacts to everything. It's gonna be a mess, but in many cases, it is worth to handle them because those kinds of women, they have the emotional maturity, which is extremely rare. That is their biggest advantage. Their mind might be trash, but the mind, if made too much use of, it can get overwhelming. They might get overstimulated, and then they can open up to you as being their savior. And what does that mean? Well, exactly what I stated before. Take the decisions, take the care, and, well, handle everything with a certain care. Yes, because she doesn't like being rushed. She doesn't like being, forced into doing things. Yes, she wants to be allowed to experience everything that she may want. Yes, everything that she feels, because that is the nature of the feminine. When you allow all of those to function, she feels that you need her. She feels that you are part of her existence. Because don't forget, the feminine invites you in her life. Yes, she doesn't need you to push her around. Yes, she just needs to feel that she's useful to someone else, much like you as a man want to feel needed. Yes, so I will wrap the video here because it's been going for quite a long time and I'm not sure how many people will actually watch it. My congratulations if you actually did. Take care, enjoy life, and hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. I'm always willing to expand on any idea that I have presented, so feel free to make your requests in the comment section. If I get the notifications and I can see your messages, I will most likely create a video sometime. Take care. This being said, Ferinjan Board signing out.